Is the second time the charm? As President Trump's trade deal negotiations take new heights, we're going to look and see what else is on the president's agenda as he prepares for his first major international trip of his second term. And joining me now is a return guest, former GOP strategist and host of the Rich Zeoli Show. It's Rich Zeoli himself. And welcome to Perino on Politics. This is where I call up my smart friends or get to sit with them and find out what's on their minds about the state of American politics. So you were meant to be on America's Newsroom today, Monday, May 12th. But President Trump stole the show, as he can do. He gave a hour and 8-minute long presentation, and I would say 22 minutes of Q&A at the end. Just a whirlwind of so many different policy issues, so many things happening on the foreign policy front and also on domestic policy. We'll take you through those real quick so that we can give you this 30,000-foot view of what's going on. I guess the most important information on the foreign policy front today also affects people here in their pocketbooks, and that is this 90-day sort of standoff or pause with the Chinese on the tariffs, which hopefully will help a lot of America's small and medium-sized businesses hold on and get their footing since the rug was really taken out from under them as President Trump tried to rebalance his trade deal.
Correct. They need it. Yeah, it has to happen. It's great to see you. I'm very excited for you to sign this copy of I Wish Someone Had Told Me, because I have it right here, and you promised me you would. No, that had to happen. Businesses were not ready for this, and they just can't turn on American manufacturing if they outsource it. And it's fine if we use a country like India, but we don't have that deal announced yet.
And India's not quite ready yet.
India's not quite ready yet. And
but a lot of potential there, but they need a longer ramp.
And people are talking about why the stores are still stocked. It's because people were pre-ordering, knowing that the tariffs were coming on Liberation Day, so they just pre-ordered. But we have Christmas coming, and we don't want prices to go up, and prices are not really coming down yet, so we need that to happen. I'm glad this is happening. 90 days, what happens in 90 days is the question, of course, right?
Oh my gosh, today, speaking of prices, this is a little bit of an aside, but egg prices have come down a little bit. Yeah. But during the show, my sister sent me a text from Denver, and there was this big semi-truck in Denver, and there was an accident.
Yeah.
And the contents of the truck spelled out, and it was all eggs.
No.
A whole semi-truck full of eggs. Yeah.
Man.
Not great. What about, so you're in Pennsylvania.
Well, South Jersey, and I had my shows in Philadelphia. I had some friends who were farmers from North Jersey who came down, and they brought me eggs from their chickens.
Oh, nice.
Nice. So more people are getting chickens.
What's the feeling like in Pennsylvania and South Jersey? Jersey is interesting because there's a gubernatorial race right now. I want to talk to you about that as well. But in Pennsylvania, how are people feeling about prices? Because there were two main issues that everyone said was the most important for the election last year: the economy and immigration. And on the economy, it was about prices being too high and inflation. On immigration, I think people feel pretty great about how President Trump has solved the problem.
Oh my God.
And are dealing with it. And he's got a lot of high approval ratings on that front. But when it comes to inflation and high prices, what are you seeing in your area?
So people are willing to give the president time on this. They really are. Because, as our mutual friend Selena Zito has pointed out, when these factories have gone out of business and these workers have seen their jobs go overseas, they're willing to give Trump a chance to realign this global order, to bring American manufacturing back, and to hopefully save these towns in Pennsylvania, particularly in John Fetterman's area. And it's interesting, Dana, how the Democrats are all coming after him now. Hit piece after hit piece going after Senator Fetterman.
Senator John Fetterman, just for people who don't know, a little bit background on him and why they're going after him now.
Well, he had a stroke and then he ran for Senate. I remember I was actually on Newsroom the day after the debate between him and Dr. Oz years ago. And Democrats said he was fine. Now there's all these hit pieces saying he's not fine and he needs to go. And that's because he's become much more of a moderate Democrat.
And very supportive of Israel.
Supportive of Israel, and also he's not bashing Trump, and he's also saying that we have to stop illegal immigration. He said we can't have the invasion the size of Pittsburgh coming to America every single day. So it's hit piece after hit piece now in Fetterman. Even today there were some new ones that came out. So
that has been one of the more ugly political hits I've seen in a long time. He does seem to have a lot of support. Is that kind of negativity affecting him at home?
No, in fact, it's amazing how people are rallying. Like our friend Senator Dave McCormick put out a tweet over the weekend saying enough with the tax on him. You had several Republican senators doing that as well, saying it's despicable.
But what about Democrats in Pennsylvania?
Democrats in Pennsylvania are, I think, in a wait-and-see mode because of they have Democrats who are trying to say they're in the middle. You got Josh Shapiro, obviously the governor. You've got Fetterman. It's a different state now. Trump won Pennsylvania big time. So Pennsylvania may not be a swing state anymore. It may be a red state. And John Fetterman may still win because that red state will still elect Democrats. But they're not. No, they're rallying around him for the most part.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had the China issue. So that's a little bit wait and see.
Yeah, wait and see. 90 days.
Then
All right,
you
good.
have the possibility of Putin and Zelensky meeting this week on Thursday. President Trump said, Zelensky, please go meet with him, and going to meet in Turkey. President Trump kind of showed a little leg today. I think that if he believes that there will be an actual peace deal, that Trump will go to Turkey. He's in the region. He could at least go over and be a part of that. Now, to me, going there to be there as a part of a 30-day pause, I don't know if that's enough for presidential attention. Maybe it is. Maybe he thinks that he needs to do that in order to get peace. But how do you see that one?
If he can bring peace, that would be a huge accomplishment for him. I mean, obviously, he was talking today about the India-Pakistan peace that they have, this temporary ceasefire. And he said it could have been nuclear war and millions could have died. He wants to get this done. He ran on this issue of saying that he was going to bring peace and not have any new wars. If he goes and he's able to achieve it, it'll be great. I don't think he's going to go unless he has a guarantee that it will happen. Don't you think? I mean, they're
Yep. I think it probably is likely. I think that he it's so interesting because in an hour and 8 minutes, the president had so much news. And, I came from a pretty disciplined background in terms of what message are you driving today?
Right.
What do I want people to talk about today? President Trump has so many things he wants to do, and he's doing it all at once. I think Mark Halperin described it today as all gas, no brakes. And I think that of all the things he put out today, several of these things could land in his favor. It's just really, it's just difficult for the human mind to get around it and to really focus on one thing.
Do you remember the days in politics where we'd say it was the message of the week?
Yes, of
right?
course.
This was the message of the week.
Well,
right?
Infrastructure
Those days
Week.
are gone.
Remember, there was going to be Infrastructure Week for like 8 years.
Yeah, right.
And then it never was. Then we got Infrastructure Week, and guess what came with that? Inflation.
Right.
There was also President Trump talking about India and Pakistan. I don't want to get into that necessarily. Just here's the bottom line. For any president, the problems of the world land on the Resolute desk at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And President Trump will be no stranger to that. He has a lot of things he wants to get done domestically. And so the point of the press conference today was ahead of his trip to do a domestic executive order on drug prices. And this, he calls it most favored nation. An issue, I'm trying to figure out the way to best describe this and summarize it. This has been let me give you an example. RFK Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services today said, this is so meaningful today, what President Trump is doing. And he said he called his 2 sons, and the sons were crying. And they said, never in my lifetime did I think this would happen. What I think is interesting is that his sons support Bernie Sanders. So I don't understand why the Democrats don't just go, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
And take him up and say, well, we'll take yes for an answer. Absolutely. This is what we always wanted. If the Democrats fight this, like, what are you fighting for? It should be Republicans who say, wait a second, this is actually not competitive. It's not the marketplace figuring it out. We're just trying to do more government price controls. And we know what ends up happening at the end of that. You get less innovation and you get more higher prices in the long run.
Yeah, it's upside down world, right? I mean, it's a Republican president doing things that you would think Democrats would do. Biden tried this in 2021, I believe, or 2022, and the courts put a hold on it. So we'll see where this goes. But I think for anyone listening, 2 things to keep in mind. Number one, Donald Trump is trying to realign the world order, whether it is with trade, drug prices, or with peace. He wants to realign the world order, all right? And now, then looking at this idea of MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again movement, we're realigning the party. You have moms in the suburbs. I talked to one over the weekend, actually, at a soccer game. She works for a food company. I won't name the name, but they have now their healthy chips. It's their healthy nacho cheese chips that are supposed to appeal to the MAHA mom. So there is this lag now where corporate America is trying to catch up to this. And I think Donald Trump, by bringing Kennedy on board, was able to bring over a lot of people who don't necessarily like Donald Trump, but they like those policies. And for years, they were waiting for the Democrats to do something about it, and they never did.
It's a fair point. Some of the MAHA movement stuff is, it crosses all sorts of lines.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting in terms of people being healthier. The president also talked about, he called his very overweight friend who is on the fat drug. And that's his words, not mine. And he said that the guy called and said, hey, why am I paying $88 for this in London when I pay $1,300 back home? There's a lot of reasons for that. But as somebody who lived in Britain for a while, I will tell you also this. Do you know how much you pay in taxes in order to have the National Health Service there, which is the worst healthcare system outside of maybe all the others? I mean, ours is terrible, but it's better than the rest. And I look at this and I think, wow, one thing is pretty interesting. If President Trump, in trying to remake the world order, makes NATO and Europe take more responsibility for their own backyard, good thing.
Good.
Right?
Yep.
And if on the drug manufacturing front and research and development, Europe gets a kick in the rear, okay, also good. But I would also say there's one other part that's hanging out there, and that is Europe treats our American tech companies terribly. And so there has to be a rebalancing there. He doesn't talk about that as much, but it's coming. And I think that the way that they try to go after the business model, and I think a lot of it has to also do with jealousy. It's not just that they want to protect their kids from social media. That actually is a universal thing. It's that they're jealous because they cannot come up with the innovation that we've been able to do here in America.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so they're whining about that, and then they take advantage of them. On the drug side, let's not forget, I remember I worked for a New Jersey congressman, very conservative guy, Scott Garrett, many years ago.
Yes.
And we toured some of the drug facilities in Bergen County, New Jersey, where they have a lot of pharmaceutical companies, and they would say it takes $1 billion to develop a breakthrough drug. There's a lot of regulation, and there's years, and there's no guarantee of success. People have to keep that in mind when they're talking about drug prices. The innovation to create the next breakthrough drug is that they'll make a lot of money on it, obviously. And the second part of it, in terms of Europe and your point about tech, is great. I don't think people realize that. I don't think people realize that aspect of this. Where America, what we do export still, we export our wonderful new tech, right? Our social media and everything else. When's the last UK... that all the kids were talking about today? I don't know. Maybe there's something we don't know about, but it seems it's either the United States or China who comes out with all these apps that everybody's using. I mean,
how many Cadbury eggs do you really want to buy?
I mean, this time of year, they're going away, Dana.
I don't like the Cadbury eggs, and I don't know how RFK Jr. feels about them either. I want to talk about the Democrats for a little bit, because there's been a little bit of movement, where you saw... First of all, there's all these books starting to come out about Biden. So you had Biden out last week trying to defend himself from some pretty tough attacks. I don't think, for people who watch Fox or listen to this podcast, you might not be surprised about how bad things were behind the scenes at the White House. They're trying to clean up on that. I don't think it's working. How do you see it?
I see it as the Democrat base. I mean, we know how we all feel about this. It was a cover-up, and they hid Biden's cognitive decline and everything else. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a grassroots Democrat, okay? Your party was complicit in hiding him. Every time he goes on TV, he's not going out there as the elder statesman. He's going out there as a reminder to them of how the party hid him, and you had no say in the process. So you're a grassroots Democrat voter. You had no say in the convention. You had no say in the primary, none whatsoever. You were handed a candidate who was a terrible candidate, and now you watch as that party goes out there and tries to pretend like that never happened, and it's a slap in your face. It really is. I think that in all the years in politics, and you know this better than anybody, when you lose trust with your party, it's very difficult to rebuild, like any other relationship. And I think the Democrat Party has lost trust with their voters. They've lost trust with their people because of how they handled this entire process. We can talk about all the books, and we can say, hey, we told you so, and we did. We certainly did. But they watched, and even they defended Biden in many cases. The voters, the grassroots Democrats, they go to a convention that's closed. They have no say in this whatsoever. So what we're all saying, I mean, I remember I was on with Mike Emanuel, and he was filling in for you on your show, and I said before the debate in June, why are we doing a debate in June? This is a setup to get him out of the race. But then Democrats all of a sudden turn around and go, oh my God, what do we do now? And they watched as people like Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer made decisions for them, but they never were able to get their own base.
Like the Republicans really had to go through like a tough primary family reunion, right? Family reunions that were uncomfortable. But now you have a generational divide. And so whoever emerges from this will be younger. You're not going to get
so?
another 80. No, I do not think you're going to get another 80-year-old candidate. There might be 15 candidates on stage. We saw that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the firebrand New York City congresswoman, says she's not going to rule out 2028. And I don't think she wants to run for president necessarily. Maybe she does, but I think she keeps that line open so that she can keep raising as much money as she does. Jasmine Crockett is the congresswoman from the Houston area. She said this week that the Democrats just want a safe white boy. And I think she's pointing at Gavin Newsom. But I was also interested in something else. The new senator from Arizona, Ruben Gallego, made a trip to Pennsylvania.
He did.
And so he's very liberal, but kind of tried to run as a moderate. What does that mean? He was going to one of the most swingiest of swing states.
Yeah, and he got a ton of national attention for it. What he said, which I think is true, is stop blaming Trump voters for our loss. That's what he said to Democrats. Stop blaming the voters. And this is what Democrats have been doing for years. Calling Trump's voters deplorables, calling them garbage, all the other things they say about them. And his point about stop doing that matters. It really does matter. But, the problem is, and this is something I think is real with the Democrat base right now, is that every candidate is running to win a primary. They can win the primary, but they can't win the general. Not in this manner. They're all running to win a primary. That's why that Newark mayor who got arrested, Ross Baraka, who's the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, was arrested to go in this ICE detention facility. Best thing that ever happened for him, because now he's going to get national news. Nobody knew his name 5 minutes ago.
He's running for governor, so he needs more attention.
Running for governor. The primary is next month. It's early June, so he's got a chance now of becoming the Democrat nominee. Democrats still want to run on this anti-Trump platform, and that may get him to win the primary. But the minute the Democrat comes out there and says, stop blaming the Trump voters, now you're saying something very unique. It's not their fault that the Democrat Party lost them and left them behind. So why are you don't blame the victim, right? I mean, the voters are the victims of your party that decided to abandon them for the elites and the faculty lounge.
Yeah. So we wait and see. I mean, as we keep saying, we're trying to find silver linings for the Democrats. I'm looking for green shoots. I don't see a lot of them. You pointed this out to me, and I enjoyed it. It was from Politico, and it was how to dine like a Washington insider. And you can see how the Republicans love a steakhouse.
Yeah.
And let's see, the Democrats, what did they really like?
They like bistros, right?
Yeah, they like a bistro. They like tacos and Asian fare. Let's see, Osteria. That's expensive. That's Northern Italian. That's a big Democrat hangout. Sometimes, Bull Feathers, which was still in office, or still in business way back when I was on Capitol Hill.
Remember
Republicans love Bull Feathers. Yeah, Hawk and Dove's always great.
Yeah, they have the best mozzarella sticks in D.C.
Thai. Oh, that's funny. Some of these restaurants are still.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Democrats really like Sonoma Restaurant and Wine Bar compared to Republicans.
Republicans still go Capitol Grill. They still go the old school.
Oh, hey, they still go to the Dubliner. That's so funny. So anyway, kind of a fun thing.
But this is so much money attached to going out and dining and whining and dining, right?
And one of the reasons I bring this up is because we're about to have a knockdown, drag-out fight about the budget.
Yeah.
The president calls it the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah.
My feeling is that it's going to get huge. And there's going to be a ton of drama. And it will be too big to fail and too big to not fail, right? Everything will just be too big. And at the end of the day, it's going to get signed.
If they don't do the Trump tax cuts, they're toast, bottom line. If we raise taxes on anybody, we're toast. They can't do it. They cannot do this.
So can they get the spending cuts that they need in order to do that and keep the bill together?
That's a great question. And, we don't want these one big bills, but it's the only way to get through the Senate without having 60 votes. So in this case, you got to do it, but they get one shot at this. People are getting a little impatient, though. I mean, supporters out there are getting impatient with...
Supporters of Trump?
Yes, they're getting impatient with Republicans in Congress. They feel like Congress is not doing anything. They're not stepping up.
Not wrong.
No, I mean, everything's being done.
But it's hard for things... They're putting the pieces in place to be able to get it done.
Yeah. But the spending cuts, again, it's a question of if we're not going to touch Social Security and Medicare, which they say they're not going to do. The next is the military. Russ Vought, who's the OMB director, he's taking over DOJ now for Elon Musk. So now target military. I say good because the defense budget has just kept growing and growing and growing.
And maybe spending on the wrong things. Yeah,
and they've talked about how they can't pass an audit at the Pentagon, for example. And I know that Pete Hegseth wants to change that, Secretary of Defense. But if we're going to realign the world order and get away from these endless wars, and we're going to get away from America being the world's police department, well, then maybe there is room to cut within the budget. But then on the flip side of that, you have China, who's outpacing us with the way they're building ships and the way they're building their military. And America finally has a hypersonic missile that China, we didn't even know apparently that was happening when China launched theirs, right? So it's tricky, and you're going to have the usual Pentagon hawks who are not going to want any cuts. You're going to have conservative hawks. We're talking about such a thin, narrow majority in the House, right?
There's not a lot of room.
No, there's
if
not.
If you're not willing to do other things. And, I look back and think about that very modest proposal, bold but modest in terms of the privatization of a portion of your Social Security budget. If you wanted, it was optional, and how the Republicans ran away from George W. Bush on that. But at the end of the day, when that problem gets solved, and it will have to get solved, I think it will look a lot like that proposal from 2005.
And if he had done that years ago, if he was successful in doing that, people would be very rich today.
Yep.
The market 25 years later, I mean, it's been booming. So, it would have been great.
This is where I ask my guests, what am I missing? What are you paying attention to that I might not be paying attention to?
I think you have to pay attention to the New Jersey governor's race, and here's why.
Yes, tell me more.
It's normally the kind of thing where you'd say, well, it's a governor's race, right? There's only 2 governor's races this year, gubernatorial elections in Virginia and New Jersey. New Jersey has elected Republican governors before. Obviously, Chris Christie was a 2-term governor.
Christie Todd Whitman,
yes, absolutely. But New Jersey has a habit of electing the opposite party of whoever's in the White House. Okay, so Christie was elected when Obama was president.
Right.
But, however, Trump did very well in New Jersey, and he wasn't even really campaigning in New Jersey. The whole focus was Pennsylvania. He had a Wildwood rally this time last year, had 110,000 people come out to. Republicans are outpacing Democrats on registration, and the entire New Jersey Assembly is up for grabs. There are issues on the ballot that have nothing to do with Trump. However, every single Republican running in that primary, with the exception of one, is trying to say that they are the closest to Trump, and then one of them is saying he's not. On the Democrat side now, with the arrest of the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Ross Baraka, what will the other Democrat candidates do to get that kind of attention? Will they decide that they want to try to do something to be the Trump resistance? Or are you going to get a congresswoman named Mikey Sherrill, who's a moderate, who's going to try to stay out of it completely? And if she wins the primary and then wins the governor's race, the Democrats will bill it as a rejection of Trump. But if the Republicans are able to nominate somebody, say, who was able to run last time around and almost win, and then win that state with a Republican in the White House, would be something they've never done before. The issues that are on the ballot are issues like affordable housing, and they are issues around education, and issues that are really issues that Trump did run on in many different ways, and also DOGE and saving money. But this race right now and what's happening in Newark with this detention facility and deportation facility has gone from taking a local race and turning it into a national issue.
Yes, and one of the interesting things that the ICE director pointed out today on Newsroom is that facility in Newark has been open since 2014.
Yep.
And
they never complained.
There's never been one visit from anybody, especially the mayor of Newark, until all of a sudden now. So it doesn't quite pass the sniff test. So, all right, good. I'm going to pay attention because, I care about New Jersey as well. Rich Zeoli, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana.